Welcome to Peculiar Occurrences. I am your host, Lilith Nova. There is a deep-rooted, peculiar past to the origins of Halloween. And I thought, in the spirit of the season that is, that we would delve deep into the spooky origins of this creepy holiday. So let's get into it. Halloween's origins date all the way back to the Celtic festival of Samhain. The Celtics, who lived 2,000 years ago in the area that is now known as Ireland. The United Kingdom and southern France celebrated their new year on November 1st. This day marked the end of summer and the end of this harvest, along with the first day of a long, dark, cold winter. A time of year that was often associated with human death. You see, the Celtics believed that on the night before the new year, the lines or the walls between the living and the dead became thin. So on October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, the night of the year when it was believed that ghosts walked the earth. In addition to damaging crops, Celtics believed that the presence of the other worldly spirits made it easier for Celtics and Druids to have predictions about the future. For people entirely dependent on the hazardous natural world, these predictions of the future were very important to the comfort of them for the long, dark winter. To commemorate the event, Druids built large bonfires where the people would gather to burn crops and animals as a sacrifice to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, Celtics often wore costumes, often of and using the materials from animals, their fur or their heads. And they would attempt to tell each other's fortunes. And when the celebration was over, they would relight their hearth fires, which they had put out earlier that evening for the bonfire, but they would relight the hearth fires to protect them for the coming winter. By 43 AD, the Romans had conquered most of Celtic territory. And within the 400 years that they ruled these Celtic territories, two of their celebrations, their holidays, had mixed with Samhain. The first was for Leah, a day in October when the Romans normally celebrated their dead. The second day was to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. And her symbol was the apple, and the introduction of this figure into the holiday is what explains away bobbing for apples. On May 13th, 609 AD, a pope dedicated a pantheon in Rome for all Christian martyrs. Pope Gregory III later changed this to include all saints, all martyrs, and moved the observance from May 13th to November 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity has spread into Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with older Celtic rites. In 1000 AD, the church would make November 2nd All Souls Day, a day to honor the dead. It is widely believed today that at the time the church was actually trying to replace the Celtic ritual of Samhain by adding a church-related sanctioned holiday. All Souls Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain, as in there was large bonfires and people dressed up as saints, angels, or devils. The All Saints' Day celebration was also called All Hallows or All Hallowmas, meaning All Saints' Day. And the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain, started to be called All Hallows' Eve, and eventually Halloween. Now, Halloween comes to America. Celebration of Halloween was extremely limited in colonial New England due to the strict beliefs of the Protestant religion. Halloween was much more common in Maryland and the southern colonies, as the belief and customs of several different European colonies along with Native Americans started to mesh. A distinctly American version of Halloween started to emerge. The first celebration included play parties, public events held to celebrate the harvest where people would enjoy each other's company, tell each other's fortune, as well as dance and sing, and tell stories of the dead. Colonial Halloween festivals also featured the telling of ghost stories and mischief making of all kinds. By the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivities were very common. But Halloween was not yet celebrated everywhere in the country. Second half of the 19th century, America was flooded with new immigrants. And these millions of immigrants, especially the Irish that were fleeing the potato famine, helped to popularize Halloween and cement it as part of an American pastime. Now, trick-or-treating. Borrowing from Irish and English traditions, Americans began to go door to door asking for food or money. This eventually became known as trick-or-treating. And young women started to believe that they could divine the first letter of their husband's names using things such as apples or magic mirrors. You actually see an example of this in the show Alias Grace.
You must take the peel off in one long piece, and then without looking behind you, you must throw it over your left shoulder, and it will spell the initial of the man you will marry.
I'm too young to be thinking of husbands.
Where Grace and her best friend use an apple to try to find out the first letter of their soon-to-be husband's name. I believe Grace's was a J. In the late 1800s in America, there was a movement to mode Halloween more into an event for neighborly get-togethers, family events, a neighborhood thing, more so than trickery, pranks, ghosts, or witchcraft. At the turn of the century, Halloween parties for both adults and children to celebrate the holiday was more of how it was celebrated. Parties focused on games, food of the seasons, and costumes. Parents were encouraged by newspapers and community leaders to take anything scary or gruesome out of Halloween. And because of these efforts, Halloween lost most of its superstitious and religious overtones by the beginning of the 20th century. Now, Halloween parties. By the 1920s and 1930s, Halloween had become a community-centered holiday, with parades and town-wide Halloween parties as the featured entertainment. And despite the efforts of schools and many community members, vandalism started to become a big part of these celebrations in these neighborhoods during this time. And by the 1950s, officials were able to sort of curb the vandalism, and Halloween became a holiday more targeted at the young children. And due to the high volume of children during the 1950s baby boom, parties moved out of community centers and more into the classroom and into people's homes where they could be more easily controlled. And between the 1920s and the 1950s, Halloween's old tradition of trick-or-treating was also revived. Trick-or-treating was an inexpensive way for the entire neighborhood to celebrate the event. And in theory, people could keep the neighborhood kids from pulling tricks on them by providing them with candy. And thus, a new American tradition was born, and it continues to grow until this day. Americans spend an estimated $6 billion annually on Halloween, making it the country's second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. So what do you think about this peculiar occurrence. Did you already know the history and origins of Halloween, or is this your first time hearing it? Either way, I had to make this video for at least one Halloween episode of Peculiar Occurrences, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know down below. And while you're down there, be sure to pick up your Peculiar Occurrence merch. As well, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this out to all your peculiar friends. And if you're new here, join our peculiar squad. Join our peculiar squad. And hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell so you always know when I upload. And to all my peculiar friends, I want you to have a beautiful, a haunting, a peculiar, but a safe Halloween. Do 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 do.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.